Call to order the regular meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, March 20th. Who did the, Jim Rulon, would you, Michael, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I'd be happy to. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brown, absent. Commissioner Kaczynski.
Here.
Commissioner Talley, absent. Commissioner Wu.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Blackwell.
Here.
Vice Chair Rulon.
Here.
Chair Crandall.
Here. The next item is special orders of business, and we have none. We have 4 minute packages to do. The first is the minutes from the regular study session meeting of February 6th, 2019. Do we have any revisions or a motion?
I will move that we adopt the minutes of the regular, of the study session from February 6th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Rule and second by Blackwell. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And I think we have one abstain. 401. The next item is minutes from the regular Planning Commission meeting of February 6th, 2019, which was continued from March 6th, 2019. Any corrections or a motion?
I have corrections. On page 6, the next to last bullet point, the last line,
Page 6, hang on. Okay.
the last line above the last bullet point, parking and backing spaces which require a narrower driveway, not a shorter. And then on page 7, I'd like to add another bullet point. Reads, suggested review zoning code regarding North Beach parking overlay to consider possible enlargement of the study area in future years. By the way, I checked the zoning code. We do have a North Beach parking overlay. And so it makes sense in the future. Maybe we can consolidate or revise the study, but that's not in the meeting, in the minutes. Yes, suggested reviewing zoning code regarding North Beach parking overlay to consider possible enlargement of the study area in future years.
Would you like to make a motion with those changes, Jen?
Yeah. I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the City of San Clemente Planning Commission, February 6, 2009 at 7 p.m. at the City Council Chambers, 100 Avenida of the City of San Clemente, California.
Second.
Motion by Wu, second by Rulon. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 0, and 1 abstention. Okay, the next item is minutes from the regular study session meeting of March 6th. Any changes or a motion?
I'll move we approve the study session minutes of March 6th.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. So we have a motion by Rulon, second by Crandall. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions on this one?
Oh, I'm sorry, abstain.
So we have 2 abstentions. So, so do we have a 302?
It looks like Blackwell, myself, and Commissioner Wu were gone.
If that's
Okay,
the
we
case,
can't
let's
vote
just
on that
punt
one.
those until the next meeting.
Move that one, and that would also hold true for item D, the minutes from the regular planning commission meeting of March 6th. Okay, continue. Okay, the next item is oral and written communications. Member of the audience may address the commission on matters of public interest which pertain to the city and are not otherwise on the agenda. If you wish to speak, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and city of residence, and make your presentation. Please limit your presentations to 3 minutes. Do we have any cards for?
No, sir.
Come forward then, please. Step up to the podium and the microphone. And you are Fred Kuczmarski?
Yes,
Okay.
and I have one of these for, one of each of these for all the planning commissioners. Please.
And you have 3 minutes, so.
Okay, so
jump
my name
into
is
it.
Fred Kuczmarski. I moved to San Clemente in 1963, and I have a business in town, and I actually have my name on the plaque on the pier. I'm here because I've been cited for having 2 RVs behind my building up in the industrial park, and my purpose is to show that that there's, you know, there's not supposed to be storage theoretically, or RVs or anything behind any of the buildings in the business park. There's a business park and then there's industrial park. Ours is actually zoned light industrial, so there is a gray area there. There are many residences, neighborhoods in town that allow RVs to be parked at their home. I don't feel that our RVs should be, you know, in the business park, we have no through traffic, it's all tilt-ups, there's businesses there, there's no people coming in and out. You can't see our RVs from the street, we keep it very clean. The complaints are, you know, the fines are complaint driven. So at one point, my nephew moved in from Wisconsin, and he was actually living in his RV behind our shop for about 3 months. And someone, you know, walked their dog, saw that, and they complained about it. You know, in the meantime, again, they allow, you know, I just drove through the business park and I took a bunch of photos. A lot of the places have, you know, gates up there and they're just a mess. You know, I mean, very unruly and stuff. Basically, if you have a gate up, a fence up, you're hiding something. It's very common that trailers and RVs are parked around there. It's not really abused at all. The only trailer and RV that we would park behind our place would be owned by the owner of the building, the owner of the property, which is us. We're not asking to get an RV park going. There is an RV park up by Rick's Trailer Supply, you know, some storage that's full, and there's also one off of Glacia that is just a mess, and there's actually been 2 RVs that are parked out there for months because there's overflow, there's not room. Basically, our RVs are insured, they're registered, they're covered. We got dinged for having a picnic table back there, a covered barbecue back there, a few pallets back there, trash cans back there. It's become almost a vendetta, we feel. The person that's given us the fines doesn't come out and talk to us. He doesn't work with us very much. It's just black and white. And reading about the RV park, again, it's a business park, but then in the map, we're zoned light industrial. And again, on our street, you know, you look across, I have Global Moving and Storage, I have Energy Suspension, they have their truck, Global has all their RVs. You know, a lot of stuff is there. All we ask is that we can get a conditional permit to park the RVs behind the building. Only the RVs that are owned by the owners of the building, owner of the property, and they are insured and registered. So there's no, you know, we're just not throwing a bunch of trash back there. So that's my point right now. And there's some zones in the business park. I apologize for the bad quality of the photos. I didn't realize that copying them would be they'd come out so poorly, but you can get the idea. I just took a little bit of time to see what's there, and it's,
Okay, thank you very much. I would say that you've got a lot of things in play here. You've got probably CCNRs, you've got probably a specific plan in the area.
the CCNRs do not forbid RVs in the park. They do not.
But there's no action we can take to alleviate this plan without direction from city council. I think that would be your best place to pursue relief and get some action.
So go to the city council first.
Would you agree with that, Gabriel?
That's correct. And if there's a permit that he can get, I have your contact, sir. I don't know exactly if you would be able to get a use permit in the business park based on the specific plan requirements, but I can follow up and see if that's something that's.
And you spent a lot of money on these, so would you like them back to use for the,
If
your
you
next
think,
level?
if they're not gonna do me any good giving them to you, and they'd do better good, I'd rather have someone at least take a look, keep it one set,
I'll keep yours, yeah.
because, again, the art, yeah.
okay. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your concern, and
All right.
hopefully it can get resolved.
All right, thank you.
And if I could just say a word, working with the planning staff, I don't know if you've contacted, you've probably been dealing with code enforcement, contacting the planning staff, our chief planner is here, they may be able to see what's going on in the ordinances and, clarify some things or see that, oh, gee, this is a light industrial versus something else, and they may be allowed or not. I don't know what it says in that particular thing, but they are a good resource to start with, actually, to see what you can do. And then if there's something that you feel needs to be changed in the zoning ordinance, say, to allow that, if the planning staff says that's what's going to have to happen, then you would go to city council and ask them to direct us to take a look at the zoning ordinances, okay?
Thank you.
And so who would I speak to in the planning?
Start with
Yeah, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Appreciate that.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
The next item is a consent calendar, and we have one item, the parking prohibition on Camino de Estrella. We have a staff recommendation.
The recommendation, this isn't a planning report, so I don't know if there's a report from the gentleman from Public Works on this item. Would you like a report?
They did give us a memorandum,
Yeah.
and which I've read, and it makes sense. So do we need a motion and approval, or do we just recommend continuing this on to city council?
With consent calendar, there's usually no report. It's simply a motion, a second, and a vote.
Okay.
If no one wants to pull this item, then I will move the consent calendar.
Do we have a second? Second. Motion by Rulon, second by Kaczynski. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. And now into the public hearing. The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony. To facilitate the meeting for all attendees, the public is asked to limit their individual presentation to 3 minutes. Following closure of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act on the matter by motion. Item A is 1527 North El Camino Real, discretionary sign permit 18557, Schwack Cantina freestanding sign, and Mr. Lightfoot.
Good evening, Commissioners, and Chair Crandall, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jonathan Lightfoot. I'll be presenting tonight the one hearing item on Schwack Monument sign. This is discretionary sign permit 18-557. Discretionary sign permits, well, this is a request to add a freestanding sign taller than 6 feet at Schwack Cantina Restaurant located at 1527 on North El Camino Real. Discretionary sign permits can cover a variety of things, including an increase in the allowed sign area for a business that's in the architectural overlay, an increase in the sign area of a freestanding sign, or in this case, an increase in the height that's allowed for a freestanding sign. This proposal, or this project, has been reviewed by the Design Review Subcommittee a couple of times, once in December of 2018. I labeled that as the mailbox sign there on the left, and once again in February of 2019. Again, just my terminology, calling that the billboard sign on the right. There's a footnote on this slide that indicates one of the topics of discussion at those meetings is that both of these signs fall under our definition at the city of a pole sign. The definition is basically requires that the foundational elements of that sign be wider than the sign itself to fall under the category of a monument. The staff report describes this distinguishing characteristic a little bit. If it's a monument sign, the city considers only one face of that sign to be the sign area. If it's a pole sign, then we double that. Both sides of the face are included. And so one of the concerns initially with the Design Review Subcommittee was limiting the total allowance of sign area. So moving in the direction of a monument sign is what would be the most feasible way of doing that. So this next slide shows the current proposal. This proposal is within the allowed sign area limitations, whereas before the applicants were requesting an increase in the allowed sign area for a business and an increase in the allowed sign area for a freestanding sign. Now they have removed those two considerations and are only looking for an increase in the sign height. And the discretionary sign permit, again, is required for freestanding signs that do exceed that 6 foot standard height. This sign does meet our A overlay design standards. It's halo lit, has bronze anodized letters, and is an appropriate scale for both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Part of how we came, or how the applicants came to a freestanding sign, is that there's landscaping at adjacent parcels, the curve of the road at North El Camino Real, and speeds of traffic in this area that do necessitate a freestanding sign. You'll notice also in the staff report, the plans that were submitted prior to submission of the report indicated a sign that was 7 feet tall. So after publication, I did have continued dialogue with the applicant and incorporated into the report a condition of approval 1.8 that does allow for an increase of up to 1 foot additional height for the sign. The purpose of that is that it's staff's feeling that the finding C can be better met, that the appropriate scale and size of the sign is something that would allow for this height. You can see from both these images here, there's a vehicle parked on the street directly in front of the sign. This is a common situation. This is one of the on-street parking areas that our parking study showed that there is regular parking in this location. And so that extra increase of a foot in height could allow for more visibility of that sign for drivers on North El Camino Real. Staff does recommend that the Planning Commission determine that this project is categorically exempt. That would be an exemption using Section 15.311, which is for accessory structures, and adopt Resolution PC 19-008 to approve discretionary sign permit 18-557 for the Schwack freestanding sign. I am available, of course, as is the business owner, Max Fisher, for any questions.
Very good. Question for staff?
Yes, I do. So in the report, Jonathan, there was discussion about relocating the existing blade sign to the back of the property. Where is that exactly on the exhibit?
So that I did not, or the plans do not indicate the exact location of the blade sign. That wasn't really a focus or a topic from the design review group, just that it would be on the alley frontage. Okay. And the blade sign, just a quick clarification on those as well. Within the architectural overlay, blade signs up to 6 square feet do not require or do not count against sign area. Yeah. So that would not be something that triggers any kind of discretionary review, the location or placement of that 6-foot sign.
Okay. So I just went out to the site and noticed that the building was set back a little farther than some of the buildings that are right up to the line of the alley. My main concern was that sign, being a blade sign projecting out, would encroach at all, but I think that because there's a variation on the face of the back of the building, I just wasn't sure where. I mean, it wouldn't matter. It looked like it would still fit, even if it was on the outermost wall of the building, adjacent to the property line. But I just wasn't sure, because it's not in the exhibit anywhere.
Sure.
Okay, and also and I contacted staff today and asked some questions about red curbs, and the intent was, and I'll explain it, and then I'm going to ask Jonathan my question. My intent was to really explore why we're going so high with the sign, and
I thought, well, gosh, when I went out today, there was a couple cars there, different scale. There was a truck and a small regular passenger sedan. When the truck was there, I had a hard time seeing, traveling south, just seeing the building at all, really.
South is a tough one.
So I could see, how or why the applicant would want a sign this high. So when I contacted Jonathan today, we talked about that a little bit. I wish Nestor would have stayed because Tom Vonnegutt's no longer here, but Nestor could have answered this question. What steps would be necessary to relieve the property of that potential obstruction and give us an avenue to not have to grant a special exception, because the height limit is 6 feet for the sign. That's why it's here, because it's over 6 feet. And the reason is that cars can park there. What if you had 2 vans parked there? The sign could be 15 feet. It wouldn't matter. You wouldn't see it. If there were no cars parked there, you'd have no reason for an exception to the height limit because there'd be no obstruction of it. And there's other red curbs out there. I just didn't know, logically how we could make that happen. If there are certain requirements for space, et cetera, and what the rules are for that, if that had been explored. And at that time in the conversation, it had not been explored yet, but it was something that Jonathan was pondering. So how far have we gone since 12 o'clock today?
Okay, so red curb policy. So I did speak to engineering today, specifically Jane Rotek. Most of the red curbs do request initiate with her in traffic. And so there's a policy established, actually approved by Planning Commission in December of 2015. So it was reviewed, or the policy was set up by engineering December 2015, approved on consent by Planning Commission in January of 2016. Because this was both commercial and residential areas where there's a lot of requests for red curbing, especially next to drive aprons. And so the policy that was set up was that red curbs would only be considered if they were consistent with both the city's municipal code and with the vehicular code. And engineering will only recommend approval for red curbing if they deem that there is a traffic hazard in that location that's created by parking in that spot. So I did take a look at this both with Jane and with Tom Vonnegutt today, and he indicated that this is not a location where he would recommend a red curb, but again, City Council is the ultimate approving body for something of that nature. So in addition to the potential traffic hazard, the one other consideration would be if there's multimodal traffic added. So if there's going to be a bike lane added in this area, then that's another situation where a red curb could be used. But the existing context that's there right now, engineering indicated they wouldn't be supportive of a red curb.
I thought that was really important to at least, in the world of, development, you're always looking for, what you can and can't do. And sometimes you can't do what you want, and there's a remedy for that via whatever, variance process, exception, whatever. And it's usually, the steps we would take would be to explore all viable alternatives before you ask for an exception. And if that was not viable, then that would make this request even more valid, if there was no workaround. Because our intent along this primary corridor is that we reduce a visual blight. That was the whole point of this whole thing. We don't want signs up. And for those that come in new, it's kind of part of the deal. If you move next to the train tracks, don't get upset if the train goes by at night. It's kind of how it works. However, this situation right here had a special situation, a special circumstance, which warranted a discussion. So I thought it was important that we at least have that on the table in this part of it for those to hear. So I appreciate you looking into that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jonathan, we've just been having parking study work sessions. And one of the things that can happen in some of these zones is that the on-street parking has relieved some of the congestion for sites that don't have adequate parking. So this is one of the few sites that you got a great parking lot, and it's wonderful. So very good. Any other questions of staff?
I do.
Okay.
Jonathan, finding E says if a freestanding sign is included in the sign application on the design scale or location of the building dictates the use of freestanding signs. So this is not a post sign, it's a monument sign. Can you, I get the the landscaping, there are huge Canary Island palm trees blocking some of the view. I get that. Can you elaborate a little bit about the curve of the street and what impacts from which direction the visibility to this business?
I can, and then I may also offer the microphone to the applicant to offer some additional insight on that front. But as you travel south especially, you don't have a building elevation that's perpendicular to the road. So the only option for a sign for visibility as you travel south would be what you see here from the street view on that building wall. But those palm trees that you indicated, when you look at street view from Google, do block that portion of the wall. So prior to this application, you can see that that wall face that is perpendicular would be visible to northbound traffic, and northbound traffic does have visibility on the existing wall sign, but that removes half of the potential customers from having visibility of signage, and that's what the owner's trying to remedy. Essentially the siting of the building in the way that it is with that adjacent landscaping is what results in that situation where there's just not visibility as you travel in the one direction.
Okay, so the main obstacle is the southbound traffic.
Correct.
Not from the north side.
Correct.
Now, in the previous image, we showed a blade sign, which I like. If we approve this monument sign, does it preclude the client to add a blade sign to that corner, the same corner?
So the direction that we received from the design review subcommittee was a preference to move the blade sign to the alley. That's certainly something that could be discussed today. And it again, does not preclude the blade sign from remaining on the building. That's something that is still within their allowed sign area limitations. As far as the location, the direction from design review was to move towards the alley, and the applicants assented to that. But if that's something that would like to be, the Planning Commission would like to discuss today, that's no problem.
Thank you.
If it becomes a bone of contention for the blade sign, if it was not on this application, could they do it ministerially for just a blade sign?
Yes, they could.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blackwell.
So if that blade sign remained, I mean, we have redundancy here. It's a little much to have cantina in too many places. But if it was something else, could they keep that there and just call it a day? Maybe change a copy, maybe welcome or open 24 hours, something like that? Fresh food? You know.
They could, and again, that would be, it could be a condition of this approval of the monument sign, that the blade sign be located in a different location. That could certainly be a condition of the siting of this sign. But yes, that current location of the sign that's there, whether it says Cantina or any other copy, there's nothing that precludes it from being in that
Right.
location.
So it's part of the original entitlement. It's there. They can keep it if they want to, right?
They can. There was discussion at one point from design review indicating a preference to move it towards the alley. They're willing to do that. If that's something that just from being on the record in discussion that you're okay with that being located anywhere on the building, then within the minutes, then staff, when we do the administrative sign permits for these signs, would not care where that blade sign is located.
Thank you.
Okay, would the applicant like to make a statement?
Hi, gentlemen. So yeah, I think Jonathan did a good job of explaining kind of our purpose to address a few of the questions regarding the blade sign. It's really not a very visible sign in its current location, and it doesn't matter to us whether it stays or goes or moves to the back. Preferably the back of the restaurant, because then it gives you signage in an area where there is none. So that's good. But the visibility is what's important. That's what matters to us, is gaining more traffic, more exposure. As we mentioned in design review, being open 3 years, I still hear people saying they don't know that we're there. They didn't know where we were. They heard we were in San Clemente, but they had no idea where. And even with the internet and all the ways that people can find you, I have people come in the restaurant with their Google Maps saying, I could find you on the map, but I couldn't find the restaurant. So, and a lot of that has to do with rated traffic in North Beach, and I know there's parking studies and other things going on that are hopefully going to help some of these situations, especially with the safety in matter of our customers and stuff. But for us, being there early before a lot of the new development, it's important that we succeed, and this is a major part of our success, is being visible to our customers and taking advantage of our location being on Coast Highway with a high traffic rate is a big part of that, with the lack of foot traffic in the North Beach area in general. So that's pretty much it.
I have a question for you.
Certainly.
Yeah, I'm Max's partner. Yeah, and relative, yeah. It's an owner-operated business, and we came out of Dana Point. I think most of you are familiar with Beach Grill, and, you know, that's a home run. Now, we've got this huge construction projects across the street, so we're seeing this building go up, and we've lost Amber Lantern, but the sales that we've demonstrated with the exact same philosophy, which is fast casual and very easygoing and a good value with good quality is exactly the mission that we brought to Cantina. And we were excited to be the entry into North Beach and realized that there was an element of pioneering involved in doing that. And we did come into compliance with all codes that were not addressed for many, many years, and with the architectural overlay, and it's a beautiful building. I mean, I can't complain about the way it turned out, because it's gorgeous, you know. So this is just a way to support a 3-year investment and we made basically we have a 20-year commitment in there. So we're planning on being one of the first in and the last out. So, you know what I mean? So we appreciate your consideration. We certainly appreciate the review committee and their support in helping us to arrive at something we feel like is architecturally pleasant, but that visibility is critical to us, absolutely critical. And you come down to North, you're by the restaurant before you see it. You really are. And southbound too, I mean, this will help southbound. Maybe it'll slow people down a little, which is a big mission on that street, because I've told these folks, it seems like it's an exit of San Clemente. Once you come down the hill, they're gone. And we have to, as a whole project, not just this restaurant, but the area, slow that system down so that they can see there are options for them to patronize. So we appreciate your consideration.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
If I may.
Commissioner Blackwell.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on keeping that blade sign up there and also doing something on the back? Maybe moving that cantina to the back, or replicating that in the back and maintaining a blade sign. Were you opposed to that? Would you have any reservations to keep it there?
Well, no, I think it's secondary in a huge way. So I like the idea about it being on the alley. And I think with this sign, you've accomplished both things, you know. I like that there's the address on there, too. That was Max's inspiration. I mean, it gives a sense of permanency, you know, so no, it could stay or it could go in the back. We're not really too concerned.
Would you be open to doing one on the back in addition to the one on the front?
Sure.
I
I mean, is that in the
I think
budget?
the concern with that would be that we would be going over our allotted sign program. Because right now we'd be maxing out our allotted sign square footage, and we're entitled to that 6-foot sign as is, but if we added an additional sign, we'd be going over, that's my understanding, is we'd be going over what we're allowed to have as far as signage goes.
Well, we can talk with staff about that, but that would be an existing, so we could talk about that. It's there already.
That alley is a point of ingress and egress, big time. People
Yeah.
come through that alley and come into the parking lot that way. And
But if it could work, you would be open to
Oh,
doing
absolutely, yeah, more signage the better.
Sure, absolutely.
Commissioner Rulon.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, you want to go from 7 to 8 feet on that sign. What do you think that extra foot's going to help you with? What specific circumstances is 8 feet going to give you?
Well, I think Jonathan addressed that there is curb parking, which, by the way, we have a nice lot, but it's still small. And a lot
Never
of-
enough parking.
Yeah, and a lot of times, people are parked in there, and you walk in the restaurant, and there's not as many bodies inside as the cars might reflect. So that curb parking is very important to us. So, and it's used. I mean, very, very often you drive down there, and so that extra height just gives us a bump above to north, to southbound too, and to northbound, to get that sign visible, to get it up and into their attention a little more.
Part of it too, as you can see in the photos, is our railing, ADA access railing system that leads up the ramp, entry ramp. Getting it above that railing system is the initial reason for the height, and then if you're coming down northbound, having it lower, there's some landscaping and neighboring properties that causes some blockage. And it still does for our sign, even as high as it is there, but it's more visible sooner coming down the hill a little bit higher.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wu?
Have you thought about moving this monument to toward the southbound to be located on the property line?
You're just moving it into the landscape, those big, huge trees, and there's huge palms in both
You can
bays.
see one in this one.
No.
Also, the
Moving this
landscaping
way.
itself
Moving this way.
cuts in. So if we had an overview, which I don't think we do, if you have an overview of the sign, the landscaping itself, that's the widest point of landscaping, which would get us the sign at the size we're able to have. Any further towards, you'd end up in a shorter landscaping bed, and it would shrink the size of the sign.
There's
down.
also a wall and a very pretty monument sign in the mechanics guy next door, which I'm sure you guys would like to blow up. And so that would interfere with any move, north. South is the same issue. There's overgrown vegetation on,
Right there.
Yeah, you can see how if you're moving the sign, there's not a lot of real estate there to move it around other than that main big section of the landscaping.
Okay.
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's open it up for public comment. I see no public comment, we have no cards. So we will open it for discussion. I will say that the Design Review Subcommittee had the great opportunity of seeing this now for 3 months, I guess, or so. So we lived with it and been by the site probably 25 times and can appreciate how hard it is to see the site coming south. And there is something that hasn't been discussed, was the safety element. If you're coming down south and booking along and all of a sudden you see out of the corner of your eye that there's the parking lot entrance, you slam on the brakes and everybody comes right up on your tail trying to, because you have to come to a stop to cross traffic to get into the lot. And so there's a safety situation that this should solve, that people slow down a little smoother and not quite as abruptly. So keep that in mind when we have our discussions. Commissioner Wu, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, my feeling is we like to help the business. And I've been to your business one time and I like it. I like the outdoor seating area especially. I think if we have a visibility issue from northbound traffic, we address that one. From the the southbound. But northbound, that can be dealt with by the wall sign or a blade sign or both. So my preference is perhaps we'll let them to keep the wall sign or blade sign or both, and then the monument sign, but we will ask them to use the landscape to shield the sign from people driving northbound, because they can rely on the wall sign and the blade sign. The reason is this monument sign sits right in front of the architecture. It seems to be a little too tall for me, and with landscaping softening it, we would, and also with allowing them to put the sign on the wall, whether it's a wall-mounted sign or blade sign, and that helps the people to see it when they drive northbound, and the monument sign will serve the people driving southbound. The combination would help them to get the visibility they want. At the same time, to the impact to the building mass.
Well, if we're landscaping and hiding this, the one-sided sign, isn't that doing the same thing?
At least
Hiding the building?
the landscape will soften it.
Well, you're softening the sign, but you're not
It will
softening the
soften
building.
the sign as well as the building. It will create a layer in front of the sign, so you don't see the big sign in front of you.
Okay, Commissioner Rowland?
Thanks, yeah, and I want to thank the applicant. I know how fun it is to keep coming back to design review. I'm sure that was a thrill for you. And I appreciate you working with us a lot. I actually think this has come quite a long way since you first came in. I think it matches this Spanish architecture that we want to, keep fitting with. Just to mention a little bit of the process of design review and maybe address one or two of your concerns, Commissioner Wu. When we were first looking at this, we were looking at three signs: a pole sign, a wall sign, and a blade sign. And one of the things we were trying to go for was actually get that sign cluttered down. And so obviously we're down to one sign that is, within the square footage, the allowed square footage. So it actually is a lot cleaner there now up front. I agree there's some of the architecture of the building that is covered by the sign, but it's just one of those tough spots. I'm not sure. I think we've kind of evolved this to as positive a way as we can. I think with the blade sign, for a similar reason, I'd like to see it go in the back and not stay in the front because it just keeps things cleaner. But I do really like the idea of it being in the back. I think it's kind of a neat feature to have it there on the alley. It gives it a little personality and as well as identification for you guys. So, I'm very much in favor of putting it there. I think it actually, adds something to the aesthetics actually by putting it in the alley there. Let's see. The condition we have, I may be the biggest stickler on this in terms of condition E, whether this dictates the use of a freestanding sign. And we actually have some experience with this building now, and we look at that street and the speed on the street. There's all that mature foliage, especially to the south of the building. There's all that mature foliage that does a lot to block signage. There's large grandfathered signs in there that these guys are having to contend with, and their signage is much smaller as we want it to be, but we still have to live with the grandfathered signs for a little. And at the same time, they now have some visibility to the northbound traffic, which they didn't have really before. So for all those reasons, I think that I can make that finding, that the particular architecture of the building, the way it's situated on the site, warrants that sign, particularly since it's not any larger than the square footage that they're allowed. The one thing that I'm a little concerned with is the going from 7 to 8 feet. This is supposed to be, we want to move this area to more pedestrian orientation, and 7 feet, a 7-foot tall sign is already a bit large. I'm not sure how much you're going to get out of 8 feet. I mean, if there's a truck there, it's going to be blocked, whether it's 7 or 8 feet. If it's a car there, I suspect they'll be able to see enough of the sign. So I'm wondering if anyone else has an opinion on it, but I sort of feel like let's keep it at 7 feet to keep the pedestrian orientation there. Just administratively, too, as far as the condition of approval itself is concerned, it doesn't seem like a condition of approval to me. It seems like an entitlement that we're putting in the conditions of approval. And maybe, I don't know, Mal, if you might have a comment on that. That's condition 1.8, which essentially allows for a sign of 8 feet versus 7 feet, as opposed to being a condition. But I'll give you time to look at that. But it seems to me that we're putting an entitlement in the conditions area, and if I'm wrong about that, I'd be happy to be wrong. But other than that, I could happily support the project, and I really appreciate the way you worked with us through design review.
Commissioner Blackwell?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, to Commissioner Rowland's point, that I can get behind that, but I think really the intent was to give a vehicle to the applicant to modify if necessary, but not necessarily to go any higher, but to just give them that opportunity. If they want to go lower, we'd be okay with that, and that's why the condition is in there, correct?
Yeah, correct. And, well, the other thing, too, is, I don't think we had an exhibit at that time that would show what the 8 feet would look like, and so the applicant would like to go in that direction, and here's an opportunity to show the Plan Commission what that would look like, and to support that condition. And that, I don't know if you were able to see the mail, but that's, let's see, condition number 1.8.
Yeah, and I've reviewed that. I think it actually, the best protection for the city is to have it in 1.8. And that's the best protection for sure.
And then, so just to move on with this, you know, I agree that the blade sign on the back is a neat element. I'm a big fan of improving alleyways and making it more, you know, pedestrian friendly and inviting folks to use our alleyways. It has to start somewhere, and that gives a little life to it for sure. There's already some life there with the adjacent use or across the alley. There's some interest, I guess, better way to put it. So I think that our intent here is to draw attention to the use. I think it's a neat architectural element. I support the blade sign remaining in the front, but not the, you know, additional cantina language. I mean, it would just need to be somewhere, either on the blade sign or on the sign itself. The new proposed sign, which I think is better place for it, but that's just my opinion. I think the applicant wanted to keep that. Certainly, you know, we don't have a condition that prohibits them from doing it. It's just in the report. So if they wanted to maintain that, it'd be great if they could do two. And I think that would be the planner's discretion, right? It would be handled administratively if they wanted to come back and do another one on the back, or the one in the front is already entitled, so they can keep it if they want to. So, yeah, I like the sign. I agree that 7 versus 8 feet, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference now that we know that parking cannot be eliminated in front of the use. I mean, if you really want to be effective, you need to go like 15 feet. I mean, somebody parks a couple vans there, you're all done. No one's going to see you. And there's no limit on the you know, during operation, you know, somebody could legally park there all day long and just completely block the use. So, yeah, I'd say I'd err on the side of, you know, less is more. I think they're both going to do about the same thing. I'm not a super big fan of this view right here. It does, you know, obstruct your view of the building a little bit and some of the details, the awnings, et cetera. I think ways to minimize that might be to, and this maybe didn't come up at the design review level, but we're here, we're not trying to design up here, but in my opinion, the scaling of it, if we're going to go as big as we can go, we might as well look at other elements that are adding to the massing, and that would be the posts. It just, in this rendering, they just look huge. It seems like they kind of match the posts with the lights on top in the outdoor dining area. It's kind of a replicated element, but it just seems like an excessive element. It just doesn't need to be there. I think it would be more effective with something more minimized. Maybe that wood color to the base of the sign, a narrower post, maybe wrought iron with a cap or finial, some sort. So I'd be open to having discussions on that. But in terms of what is proposed now, if no other option exists, I can get behind this. You know, we're trying to help this business owner, and the sign is certainly going to be big enough to draw attention, so I can support it. I would like to see some minimizing on the post. I like to see those elements get a little smaller, less obtrusive. And I too would be more inclined to go with the 7 feet versus the 8. I just don't think the extra foot's going to make a huge difference, because it's lost in the top anyway.
Okay, very good. I'll chime in here. I will say that they've got a unique location that is much harder to sign than most any other piece of property in the area right now. And I understand the need for the monument sign. I think something that we probably should have requested was more photos coming south, because that's really where you're going to pick up a lot of visibility. Having a sign with just one side and trying to hide the other one, it hides the building either way. I think the two-sided sign makes sense to me. I would like to see the caps on the columns brought down maybe half the height down to the sign. The distance between the sign and that cap's a little high, just bring it down to be a little better proportion. All of the findings we've got to make, A through E, are pretty easy for me to make for this sign as far as where the cantina sign goes. I think maybe the easiest way is to leave it where the report says. If they choose to change it, that can be done ministerially. So we aren't making revisions to the resolution. It's come a long, long ways. This is the kind of business we want to see survive and thrive down in the North Beach area. It's already going in the right direction for North Beach, so thank you very much for your investment in all in that. So I can make the findings. I'd like to see the caps come down a little bit. Between 7 and 8 feet, that might be a good reason to leave the cantina sign up on the front as well, to pick up if the sign does get hidden. At least you've got that showing the cantina in the rare cases that the sign's blocked. But I can support the resolution, and I think Jonathan did a great job with the presentation and working with them to bring us something that's a far cry better than what we originally saw when it first came in. Commissioner Kozinski.
I like what you put together. I can make the findings for A through E. I would suggest, though, before you start taking down the blade signs, to possibly do a mock-up, because just to see if it's the visibility you want. Because based on these pictures and this rendering, your sign is not going to be at that angle. And I'm a little concerned that you're not going to get what you're looking to get out of the sign. But that's just something for you to look at. Maybe put just a couple boards up there and the sign, and see if you're truly getting what you want from both sides. But I'm supportive of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Wu.
I live with what's presented in front of us, the 7 feet tall sign. I'd like to keep that option for the applicant to add the blade sign back to the front. I believe that, I wish we can lower the post cap, but I'm not sure if we can do it. It already went through a design review. Should we design on the dais? I'm not sure. So I'm going to support that as is, but I'm not going to support the 8 feet tall, because every little bit helps. You can go even higher and higher. Where do you cut the line? I think we should act upon what's in front of it, the 7 feet tall sign.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rowland.
Yeah, two things. One is I want to get some clarification, I guess, on the blade sign, because some people have been suggesting that we add the blade sign back to the front, and it's something that we discussed very specifically in design review in terms of reducing the amount of sign clutter. I'm not sure how much it would add in terms of the visibility. I think one of the things that the applicant was talking about in design review is that they didn't, as I recall, they didn't seem to think that it added much in the long run. They had added the blade sign to capture more traffic, and as I recall, it didn't help that much. And it kind of adds to the sign clutter. So I have a little concern about that, and maybe Jonathan, can you talk to us about the entitlements for the blade sign? Is it something, regardless of what we do here, are they entitled to put it in the front or the back, or just the back, or both, or
Yeah.
what's the deal?
So the code allows for one blade sign up to 6 square feet to be included that doesn't count against the sign area. So where we are now, the only thing with what's proposed that triggers the discretionary sign permit is the height. Adding a second blade sign would trigger going above the 25 square feet of sign area allowed for a business. That is still covered by the same discretionary sign permit. The noticing that we did just referred to a new freestanding sign in the area. So My only concern, and this would be something I would defer to Mal on, is whether, that noticing was sufficient to cover an amendment, or potentially, the other avenue would be that our code, as far as amendments go, allows administrative amendments to be done to entitlements that are determined to be of, insignificant impact. So that's something that the city planner could do, and maybe through discussion here, you could indicate your take on whether that's insignificant or whether that type of an amendment would need to come back to a hearing. But I would maybe defer to Mal on that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, if the question is whether we can dictate where the blade sign goes through this approval, it was mentioned previously that we could probably condition approval of this, of the location, and that's fine. Anything else would be going beyond what the noticing allows for here. But if the commission felt like the blade sign were better off in the back of the building by the alley, they could certainly impose a condition of approval that stated as such, especially if the applicant is amenable to that. That certainly makes that possible. Otherwise, the applicant, as Jonathan has stated, has a right to place that blade sign really anywhere on the building. So unless it's conditioned with the acquiescence of the applicant, there's no other way really to deal with that.
Okay, but only one. They could either put it on the front or the back.
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe
All right.
one quick clarifying question for Mel. My understanding was that there was consideration of a second blade sign. So correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that the commission was discussing potentially adding a second blade sign, which would then put them above the sign area, which requires a discretionary sign permit. We are, of course, reviewing a discretionary sign permit here. So whether that amendment is something that could be taken care of today to allow for that, or what avenue the applicant could take should they want to pursue a second blade sign.
Is there a written code here?
Not in the report, but we could probably.
Okay, if you give me just 2 minutes, I can look at the code
That's
and
fine.
get an answer to
And
that.
I don't know if it'll be
If it's
necessary.
necessary.
Let's discuss a little more and we'll find out if it's necessary.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't be in favor of allowing a second blade sign. They got the first one by right. So, okay, thanks for clarifying that. So I wanted to find out about that because I'm a little concerned about the clutter. But the only other thing on a different note, this wasn't pointed out, but I think it's worth making sure people know. It's a little hard to see on this. If you notice the logo, the surfer logo actually goes up and outside of the boundaries of the sign. My understanding is, and Jonathan's in discussion right now, so he probably can answer, I believe that actually doesn't count in the signage area, which is fine because it actually, I think, is a nice dramatic, feature. So it's nice for them. It actually gives an element of the sign that's a little bit higher than other parts of the sign and does kind of a nice, kind of takes you outside of the confines of the sign. So, not for nothing, but it's just, I just thought it's an interesting part of the sign that I wanted to make sure people noted of. I think it's a positive aspect.
Okay. So would anyone consider a resolution for approving the sign at 7 feet with the stipulation that the post caps come down a small amount over the signs, with one condition of approval, maybe it's another bullet point that says the location of the blade sign is at the applicant's discretion, either front or back. And are there any other changes that people would favor beyond those two? 7 foot,
So that's-
change in caps.
So that would remove condition of approval 1.8, and it would add a condition to reduce the height of the post caps. Do we need that as a condition, or
We're not
Just a
removing.
direction.
just a notice to staff? Okay, so we don't need to put it in the preposition. So just removing 1.8, it sounds like?
Why are we removing it? We're just going to change it to 7 feet, right?
7 foot height,
Oh, sorry, change it to 7, okay.
Yeah.
and the blade sign would be at the discretion of the applicant and staff. Who would like to make a motion?
Well, Commissioner Crandall, I do have, just to get a feel for the commission's take on lowering the post, how about the scale of the post? Is everybody okay with that and the color?
I'm uncomfortable a little bit at the 8 foot, at the 7 foot. If the caps come down, I'm comfortable with it.
Even with the post scale right now?
I don't think they need to be beefed up anymore.
And minimize them?
No, we had presentations to us with just 6x6s or something, and
Right.
it started looking more and more like a temporary sign.
I see, okay. So we want structure, permanence? Okay, well, that makes sense. Well, I'm definitely behind lowering the post as well.
Commissioner Kozinski, your light
Shall
was
we be
on.
more specific about how much to lower?
Probably half the distance between where the sign, the top of the sign is on the edge and the existing cap. So it'll be like 6, 8 inches above the bottom swerve of the cap, the top.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other discussion, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Please.
I'll move that we adopt resolution number PC 19-008, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving discretionary sign permit 18-557, Schwack freestanding sign, a request to install a freestanding monument sign at an existing restaurant located at 1527 North El Camino Real, with a change to condition of approval 1.8 to read, the height of the sign may be modified by the applicant and shall not exceed 7 feet. The revision shall be reviewed and approved by the city planner or designee, and we pass on the comments about the caps to staff.
Do we have a second? So we have a motion by Rulon, second by Blackwell. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations, and I hope it brings large masses of customers.
Well, we so appreciate your consideration, your discernment, and the result.
Very good, okay. That is the last item under our public hearings. We go on to new business, we have none. Old business, we have none, and reports of commissioners and staff. Any comments?
Yeah, I would like to ask Commissioner Chichinski and Wu about the event that they attended, the training. Do you guys have any comments on that? Anything to share with the
Well,
commission?
city planner has something to say first, and then we'll add to it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Well, I could start off. You know, the Planning Commissioners Academy, some of you have been to it before. It's an event that the League of Cities of California puts on every year, and it was at Long Beach. It was on the Queen Mary. I've been to it twice, but it's a good opportunity, especially for any commissioner to go, but especially for new commissioners. So it was good that Commissioner Kaczynski could attend. Some of the highlights are just they provide legislative updates that are important for the Planning Commission to know about. So one of the things I noticed is that there's a lot of housing bills in the works right now that would affect communities like San Clemente, but also some bills regarding redevelopment, so bringing back redevelopment to the state. It might take a different form. It wouldn't be like redevelopment as we knew it before, but there was also some sessions about CEQA that I attended, and also another interesting thing is the metrics for traffic. And so you might recall level of service was being used as a metric for traffic studies. They covered a metric of vehicle miles traveled, and a lot of cities are going in that direction. And so I thought that was interesting to see how that's changed and what the justification was for. But you know, I was able to join the other commissioners, and I'm sure they have some other things that they can report from the commission, from the academy.
I found some of the laws that are being proposed, there's 2,700, I believe, new amendments being proposed in the legislative session. Some of them have to deal with ADUs, which would eliminate parking requirements, would increase height limits, increase densities. Possibly one is going to be introduced 2 ADUs on a property as of right. So all those are interesting. They're all coming down the pipe. And I was inspired by the opening speaker, which he had some great ideas on making cities more walkable. And Gabriel and I talked about possibly, he suggested there might be some money that the city can get in making Del Mar more walkable for a short period of time, just as a test, to see eliminating the cars, no cars going up and down, and just putting park benches and trees and whatnot down. So I thought that was interesting. But all in all, it was a good conference.
I had a great time. It's a historical structure. Now it's considered a building once they put it in a dry dock and anchor it. The only thing I want to add is the state has a one-time money, $500 million for emergency sheltering. And I think giving the lawsuit against the city on South Orange County with other cities in the county, I heard some rumor that someone may want to consider that, the possibility to explore that. But the city or the county, each of them has to declare a emergency sheltering emergency before they can tap into that money.
You say it's state money or?
The state money, yeah. Other than that, I'd like to report that last Thursday, there was a Coastal Advisory Committee meeting. There were a few things on Poche Beach. We reviewed a Poche Beach falconry program, and recommended the city to continue it and to release a request for proposal. And then also, the city and the staff had a difficulty to establish the accurate reason why the water quality around the pier. So we voted to recommend to City Council to establish a stakeholder advisory committee for the pier bacterial resource characterization study, and appointed a Vice Chair Joanne Campopiano to serving the committee. What they do is they used a canine marker, DNA marker, and a human DNA marker, and they couldn't pinpoint the exact reason why those water qualities are bad. Now the DNA marker of avian, the birds, are available, so we're going to do all of them and do hopefully a comprehensive study to pinpoint exactly what causes this water quality issue, and then based on that study, we'll implement the best practice management and continue to monitor the water quality around the pier. And then we work on the annual work plan, hopefully to wrap up in next meeting in April. And the last item is Earth Day, just so to let you know. The City of San Clemente's Earth Day event is on April 13th at Parque Del Mar, sponsored by the city along with the Watershed Task Force. Please join if you have the time. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Blackwell?
No, I thank you for that update, guys, for the planning event. I think that's good information to have those discussions and put it out in the public. Big stuff happening. The Coastal Advisory Committee, what they do is pretty important, and it's especially when there's issues on the table that really make a difference. This water pollution thing, that discussion's been going on forever, and there's even been mitigation, it's my understanding, under the pier to reduce the number of pigeons, et cetera. And it's always been a suspicion that it's caused by the avian, the birds. So I can't wait to hear what it really is. It's like the saga just goes on and on and on. So at the Earth Day, what's happening there? Is it going to be like a carnival, or what's going on?
I don't know. You have to ask the environmental program supervisor.
Okay.
Cindy M. And then it's also organized by Watershed Task Force, which is led by Bill Park, former chair of
Yeah, that should be exciting. Thank you.
If you'd like more information on that, we could send it to the commissioners for Earth Day.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the last item is, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I will move we adjourn to the next adjourned regular meeting of the Planning Commission to be held on April 3rd, 2019 at 6 PM in council chambers located at 100 Avenue Presidio, San Clemente, California, as the study session has been canceled due to a lack of business.
Do we have a second? Second. Second by Kaczynski, motion by Rulon. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.